Thank you very much. It's great to be in Auckland. We have a fabulous team here, fabulous partners and great clients. When I come to Auckland, I've been here many times. I love New Zealand. Obviously, you can tell from my accent, I'm Irish. The conversation quickly gets to a sport both New Zealanders and the Irish love, which is rugby. And last week, I spoke to my father, who lives in Ireland, Liam Farrell, and Liam asked me, he said, Bill, what are you up to? I said, I'm going to New Zealand next week. He didn't say to me, what are you going to be doing or why you're going. He said to me, when are we going to beat the All Blacks? We're obsessed in Ireland with when are we going to beat the All Blacks. So I had to think about it. I didn't answer him because I didn't want to say never. I didn't want to say maybe. But it was an interesting question, isn't it? When are we going to beat the All Blacks? When is Ireland going to beat the All Blacks? So I asked one of my analytics people, Elsa, to do a bit of analytics on when Ireland will beat the All Blacks. So just before we get into the transformation story, I thought I'd share with you the output of those analytics. There it is. I think the answer is still never. But the probability is that we will beat the All Blacks by about 20 to 30% this year. This is our chance, by the way. And if you look at the history going back to 1905, I think the first game, New Zealand beat Ireland by 3 points. And since that time, you can see the performance trends over that time. It's interesting, isn't it? The average point difference for the All Blacks team is 15.8 plus. The average point difference for Ireland is 1.5. So even at your worst, and Ireland at our best, we still won't beat you guys in the rugby. However, when we've played you historically, we've always been at a trough or playing at our worst performance. New Zealand has always played at their best performance. This year, if you can see what's happening to the Irish team, we are peaking. You guys are in a trough, believe it or not, but still, you're still better than Ireland. But the point I'm trying to make is that come the quarterfinals in Cardiff Arms Park, you'll play France or you'll play Ireland. Now, we hope it's not us because we'll probably win that pool and play Argentina. But if we do come second in the pool, you will play us and we'll be at a peak. So just be ready, guys, for that. It should be an exciting time. I haven't told Liam this yet. He's 82. I doubt if Liam will ever see Ireland beat the All Blacks, unfortunately. But there's some hope. There's some hope. So, transformation. What I'd like to talk to you today is a little bit about why this word has become so popularly used at the moment amongst corporations, what's happening in our business world that's causing people to think about why we need to transform our organization. And there's a shift away from functional transformation to enterprise-wide transformation. And John's case study with Lego is a great example of how they've gone through that significant business transformation to become much more successful. There's a huge people element of course, in that. And previous to my current role, I was the global head of talent for Ernst & Young based in the UK. And we did a lot of work around talent. And I'd like to share with you the stories around the strategy of what we did, the whole-of-life strategy for EY, and the reinvention of the purpose of a firm like EY. And then finally, get into a little bit about the basic necessities of when organizations go through a transformation exercise, what that means for you practically in your roles as CFOs. So firstly, in 25 years of consulting, I've never experienced so much change around the world that's happening now. In fact, when I was putting this slide together, I thought, what are the top 5 things you could talk about in terms of what are forces or megatrends that are causing organizations to change? Well, there's lots more than 5, as you know. And having lived in Europe for 3.5 years until a year ago, the big stories there were what's happening to the EU, the economic crisis, what's happening to the Arab Spring. People are now saying it's the Arab winter. what's happening in digital, what's happening in demographics, what's happening in Asia, in China, what's happening to the iron ore price, what's happening with shale oil and the impact on oil and gas. All these things are creating massive changes to the way we work at a global level. But also creating massive opportunities. For a firm like EY, we see this as opportunity. Change means opportunity. Change means opportunity. It means opportunity for organizations that you work in to create something new. And as we saw from the Lego example, from John's discussion, globalization and digital meant that they could react quickly to the current situation they are in at the cliff and respond to become a fabulous and ever-improving organization. But the most pervasive change that we're seeing is definitely in the digital space. The one that is mostly acutely changing the way we need to think about our processes, our operating models, how we go to market, and what we do as CFOs. That's the critical one. That's the one I would like to focus on first. And if you think about digital, and the way I want to describe digital is in a very expansive way. Digital from a data perspective, digital from a device perspective, digital from a new technologies perspective, and it's pervasive across all the things that we do in our organization. Now, if you look at this picture, I love this picture because it's a representation of a situation of a group of people in the Vatican separated by several years. If you look at the first picture on top in 2005 compared to 2013, you can see in that very short space of time what digital has done to change the way people behave and how they record an event, how they remind themselves of what's happening in an event and maybe take a picture or take a video of that event. The point is that what they're doing there is creating data, lots of data. And therefore that data has to be stored somewhere, it has to be filed somewhere, and it's creating a massive amount of demand for organizations on how we use data, how we track data going forward. The innovative companies that we know that we work with every day are continually trying to innovate around what they're trying to do in terms of their growth aspirations. And if you look at Uber, for example, who uses Uber here in the room? A couple of people. I love Uber. Why is Uber a $41 billion company? Because it's turned a smartphone into a remote control. This is my remote control for taxis. And ultimately, if you look at the innovation and the types of companies that these organizations are acquiring, almost now on a weekly basis, is that they're targeting the growth around automation and potentially driverless vehicles, right? So ultimately, I'll be using this. They reckon about 10 to 15 years that when I see the Uber car coming to pick me up, it will not have a driver in it, and I'll be using this as a remote control. This is a massive change in the way we're using digital. Automation, robotics, the move from static machinery to mobile machinery to intelligent machines. This is a fabulous picture on the right-hand side. They call these the robotic mules from a company called Boston Dynamics. Go have a look at their site and see exactly what's happening there around innovation and the speed of change that we're seeing. Now, some people think this is fantastic, other people think it's not so good. You can obviously see the threat on employment, the competition that we have as organizations to engage people, as well as to introduce intelligent machines to do work that people used to do. So there's a debate going on, raging at the moment, around how we manage the digital age, how we manage the Internet of Machines, how we manage automation, how we manage data, how we manage cyber security, how we manage theft. So a couple of weeks ago, I got skimmed That's the digital terminology for getting robbed. Day one, after I got skimmed on day one, day two, the robbers checked out my bank balance. They didn't take any money out. Day three, they took $950 out. Day four, they took $1,000 out. Day seven, I got a call from the bank. Were you in Western Sydney last week? I said, no, I was in Perth. It's interesting. It's a little bit late. Not good enough. Not good enough. The banks should have talked to Uber, and they would have known exactly where I was on day one and would have prevented the theft. So you can see that the convergence of technology and information is going to happen. So ultimately, even though cybercrime will continue to rise, and it is continuing to rising, there's going to be a convergence of technologies that will help me not get skimmed and get robbed. So organizations that don't innovate, what happens? There's some examples. You've probably read about these examples of organizations who don't innovate and don't transform. Several examples. Kodak is a great example. In fact, when we re-established the consulting business in Ernst & Young 10 years ago, that was one of my first clients I worked on, a global HR transformation in Kodak. The company doesn't exist anymore. The point is that this speed and pace of change in the digital world and all the things that are happening around the world has really got to cause us to revisit and think about our organization's purpose, what we do we need to transform, how we transform, and what is the role of the CFO in the transformation. EY as an organization, these are our new competitors, by the way. You don't see the name of Deloitte up there, or PwC, or KPMG. These are our new competition. Coursera provides massive online training content to companies. What happens if they develop an in-depth training course for a tax professional? And companies buy that training, they increase the competency and capability of that individual to do tax work. They may not need to call EY anymore for tax advice because they've got their in-house tax specialists. Cognizant, moving from analytics into game theory around employee engagement. Organizations go to Cognizant to look at and get advice on how they lift engagement. They don't come to EY. LinkedIn probably will be the biggest HR consultancy and provider of contract services in the next few years. If you think about it, their database has got thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals and data on individuals about what they do, what their competencies are, where they've worked. Much more than any data than I can provide from the 200,000 people that work in EY around the world. So what you're seeing is that when we take a step back at EY and look at our competition, and we look at what digital is doing to us, we've got to think very differently. And we've had to think about our own transformation going forward. So transformation it's about people, it's about purpose, and it's definitely about experiences. And you've seen that again from the Lego example. It's all about experiences. And just because it's about people and purpose and experiences, it doesn't mean that the CFOs don't have to get involved. In fact, it's the opposite. What we're seeing is a convergence of roles at the C-suite. We're seeing more synergies at the C-suite. We're seeing CFOs getting much more involved in stewardship around transformation. We're seeing a movement away from specific functional transformation to enterprise-wide transformation. And although many organizations, and I'm sure you've all been involved in that new system upgrade or a new systems implementation, what we're seeing is a higher order of transformation initiatives going on.